Good evening, and welcome to the 130th Annual Meeting of the Trustees. It's my honor to welcome you all, members of governance and close friends, to this auspicious night. Even though our format has changed, the importance, responsibility, and intentions for tonight are the same. As we look back at all that was accomplished this past year, honor and recognize some exceptional individuals, and imagine the future, we have much to be proud of and much to look forward to. Tonight, we share a tradition that has continued without interruption for 130 years. Even in these challenging times, we as a governance group are just as committed to the meaning of this annual assembly. And so we Zoom. Within this virtual environment, we intend on inviting you into the conversation. We hope that you will all enjoy our reports and will indeed join the chat. To start us off, I'd like to welcome to the podium David Kroll, Secretary of the Board of Directors, who will officially call the meeting to order, and then he will deliver the report of the Finance and Audit Committee.
Thank you, Peter. I am pleased to declare that we have a quorum and can begin the meeting. I would like to request a motion to waive the reading of the minutes and approve them as mailed. Please note your motion and votes in the chat. May I have a second? Okay, seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? It passes. Approved. Mr. Chairman, we can officially begin the meeting. I am pleased to report on last year's financial results and our fiscal soundness. This has been one of the most challenging years in the trustees' history, with the unprecedented impact of COVID being quickly followed by the tragic death of our esteemed and beloved CEO, Barbara Erickson. The trustees has, however, come through this adversity well, and we are emerging as an even stronger organization. We have continued to add reservations, progressed with our bold plans on the Boston waterfront, increased the amount and variety of programming, and engaged record numbers of people. We have achieved that while maintaining a strong fiscal control, incurring no debt, and avoiding any furloughs or staff reductions, of which we are very proud. In that context, let's review the trustees' substantial growth, which began with the Path Forward strategic plan and is now continuing with the Momentum strategic plan. We have an expanding membership base as evidenced by an almost doubling in members over the last 5 years. This growth has not stopped during the current fiscal year, and we now have over 250,000 members, an increase of 20% in this year alone that hasn't even yet been completed. Similarly, we have a significant increase in visitation, now surpassing 2 million. A tremendous achievement considering that many properties were closed for significant parts of the year. These are the real indicators of a healthy, growing organization. Both admissions and membership helped to boost our revenue, but we also saw impressive 36% growth in our community-supported agriculture programs, what we call CSAs, and our flexibility at the onset of COVID allowed us to quickly invest in our farm stores, which resulted in their growth of 52% over the prior year. There were, of course, challenges in our customer-facing revenue sources, what we call earned income, with property programs, summer camps, retail, rental, and gala events all being understandably impacted. But even in those areas, we moved to adapt quickly, introducing virtual events and camps and new programs. Fundraising was also extremely strong, with a total of $38 million raised, of which the $12.6 million that you see here was for operations, further evidence of the support for our mission. Despite the pandemic, our total revenue for last year actually showed growth over the previous year. Should note that we also benefited from a $4 million PPP grant, which allowed us to retain our staff, which again was very important to us strategically. Earned income continues to grow, which is reflected in the current budget, which shows a 22% increase for this year, a budget that we are on track to achieve. A key measure for nonprofits is the percentage of expenses that drive the mission, not the overhead. And last year, 81% of our expenses were for direct mission delivery, up from 77% 3 years ago, and continuing to move in a positive direction. So administrative and fundraising costs are now less than 20% for the first time, I think showing that we're pretty efficient at delivering our mission. Here is a balance sheet summary that clearly shows the financial strength of the trustees. We finished last year with total assets of $385 million, importantly, up $82 million from the prior year, which was driven by exceptional investment performance, strong operating results, and continued growth in philanthropic support. This included $250 million in cash and investments, most of which is endowment. So a very strong balance sheet, and one that allows us to continue growing from a very solid foundation. In summary, we are growing robustly in support of our mission of conservation, cultural preservation, environmental sustainability, healthy local agriculture, and our biggest goal, stepped up public engagement. We are doing so within a framework of very low financial risk. Mr. Chairman, I submit this report for the record and ask for a motion to accept it, this report on our finances. May I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? It has passed, approved. I will now turn the podium back to you, Peter.
Thank you, Dave. We are thankful for your work with this committee. It's great to hear positive reporting in such a challenging year. Speaking of progress, I would like to share with you some of the work that we've done to open our public garden, Long Hill in Beverly, in this quick video break.
Welcome to Long Hill and Sedgwick Gardens, a special place with a colorful history filled with family memories, literary and horticultural pursuits, and most of all, gardening. Today, Long Hill welcomes visitors to stroll the gardens and visit the historic house. The trustees have recently invested in a multi-year plan to rejuvenate the public gardens and improve amenities in order to create a revitalized experience for our visitors. This includes the development of a selection of new destinations at Long Hill, including a beautiful garden room designed by Julie Moore Maservi Design Studio in 2020, a pergola and brick terrace where visitors can enjoy a picnic lunch, attend a public program, or a private event. And we're thrilled to open the main house to the public, which will feature a gift shop and grab-and-go food for sale.
We're standing at Long Hill, which we know today as this beautiful garden that was started in the early 20th century. But Long Hill was really part of a vast area that was occupied by the Pennacook and the Pawtucket peoples prior to European settlement. In 1635, Beverly was settled by European settlers who came here longing for the rich harbor of the Danvers River and the rich fertile ground for farming. The earliest map we have for Long Hill is in 1836, showing this entire property of 114 acres as farmland. There's a farmhouse down at the bottom of the hill where the Appleton family lived, and they stayed here up to the early 20th century.
Long Hill was owned and cared for by the Sedgwick family from 1916 to 1979, their beloved summer home that in the 1950s became their year-round haven. Mabel Cabot Sedgwick, an accomplished gardener and author of The Garden Month by Month, and her husband, Ellery Sedgwick, noted author and editor of the Atlantic Monthly, summered here until Mabel passed in 1937. After Mabel's death, Ellery married Marjorie Russell Sedgwick, a rare plant specialist. The combined creative vision of these two women led to the design of Long Hill's enchanting gardens surrounded by more than 100 acres of woodland. Today, visitors can take in the sweet aromas, vivid colors, and botanical diversity of the Sedgwick Gardens, where there are 5 acres of cultivated grounds that are laid out in a series of separate garden rooms, rendered in an informal or wild garden style, accented by ornaments, statuary, and mature plantings that blend seamlessly into the woodlands. Visitors can also learn more about the gardens, family history, and the elegant federal brick house.
The garden is composed of over 2,500 trees and shrubs, which are all now cataloged. They are identified, they have labels on them, and they are entered into our database as part of our process to really curate the collection here and develop a world-class public garden. There are trees and shrubs from around the world, including magnificent specimens of things like Japanese snowbell. There are several different types of stewardias in the garden. Early in the spring season, the garden is just populated with beautiful magnolias in bloom and cherry trees, weeping cherries, upright cherries, seedling cherries that have made their way along the woodland edges. That tree and shrub collection is one of the most exciting things for people to see because they'll see things here that they rarely see in cultivation in this neck of the woods.
Surrounding the formal gardens, guests can hike around the neighboring woodland on a network of trails, including the main 1.2-mile loop trail. Other areas of interest include the apple orchard, children's gardens, and garden production spaces. Lastly, everyone is encouraged to take part in one of the many horticultural programs or public events through the Putnam Horticultural Center. These programs were designed for all ages and ability levels. With all there is to see and do at Long Hill, we hope you'll come back and visit us many times throughout the year. We hope to see you soon.
Good evening. I'm Nisi Panetta, Vice Chair of the Board of Directors. On behalf of the Governance and Nominating Committees, I'm pleased to present the following for approval by our voting members. Each year, members of the Governance and Nominating Committees devote hours to identifying and recruiting the very best qualified new people to nominate for leadership roles and to reviewing current governance members who are up for renomination. We are very proud of the excellent slate we have before you this evening. For the Board of Directors, we have one new nomination serving one 3-year term, Edward Garmy, Concord. For the Advisory Board, we have 7 new nominations, each serving one 3-year term. Alexandra C. Hastings, Boston, Bradley C. Irwin, Lexington, Ann W. Lambertus, Lexington, Peter K. Lambertus, Lexington, Adam J. Margolin, Boston, Kirsten Poehler, Medfield, and Caroline Tall, Sherburne. For the Chairman's Council, we have one new nominee serving one 3-year term, Walter C. Donovan, Boston. For corporate trustees, we have 21 new nominations, each serving one 3-year term. Please refer to the electronic program book that was emailed to you for a complete list of nominees. You'll also find a listing of the members of governance who have been renominated for terms of 3 years in the electronic program book. Are there any other nominations from the Zoom? If so, please enter them in the chat. Seeing none, can I have a motion via the chat to instruct the secretary to accept the slate as a single vote for approval? With that motion, may I have a second? Excellent. All in favor, please enter your vote in the chat as aye, A-Y-E. Any opposed? Wonderful. Congratulations to all who have been elected, and thanks to all our governance for their service. I'll now return the podium to you, Peter.
Thanks, Nisi. Nisi, thank you for presenting all of these important governance items. I'd also like to thank Linda Hammett-Ori and Brian Kinney, chairs of the Nominating Committee and Governance Committee, respectively. They and the members of these committees have done an excellent job putting together such a great group of new members for shepherding the long-term health of our governance structure. The longevity and success of any organization relies on the ability to bring in new, passionate people to help drive the mission. Each year, we honor an employee of exceptional performance and achievement. During this most challenging year, there were many stars and many who helped keep the organization moving, open to the public, and thriving. My deepest gratitude to all staff. While it was a difficult task to single out just one employee for this honor, it was unanimous that this year's Employee of the Year is Christine Boynton, the Manager of Coastal Marketing and Communication. In a time when climate change is impacting our coastal properties and communities severely, the Trustees has launched several projects to mitigate these impacts, as well as to draw attention to the issues at hand. Christine has been the master editor, creative producer, and the engineer behind these efforts. She launched and produced the innovative 360-degree drone videos over Crane Beach in Nantucket, which illuminate the various threats and challenges impacting two of our most important and vital coastal properties. Christine has been leading the community outreach efforts to engage the neighborhoods in East Boston around the Pierce Park 3 project. She also manages the microsites, blogs, and email communications. This year, in the midst of a pandemic, she convinced a group of political officials, press, and supporters to trek out to Long Point on a rainy day for the launch of the second edition of the State of the Coast report, ensuring that this important effort rose above the noise of the year's event. Getting the word out in a strategic way is more important than ever, and Christine faced the challenges and did just that.
What I like best about my job is I get to learn about so many incredible projects going on at the Trustees. And when I get to be at a property and see them in action, it's always a privilege to meet and learn from colleagues during these visits and see just a small piece of the hard work and dedication that goes into managing these incredible properties and these incredible projects. I'm always learning something at the Trustees, and it really doesn't get much better than that. My job as the Coastal Communications Manager is to support the Boston Waterfront Initiative and our coastal work with marketing, communications, PR, social media, a mix of things. Really, the goal is to get the word of the important and exciting work we're doing out to the public, to get them not only educated about it, but excited about it, wanting to get involved, wanting to come out and see these places, and understanding what work goes into it to care for it not only today, but also for tomorrow. My job can look very different day to day. Some of my favorite days are when I'm on a property, getting to see firsthand some of this amazing resilience and coastal work we're doing, meeting different people at different properties and learning from them really what it takes to steward some of these impressive reservations. Sometimes it's in the office writing content. I do a coastal article for each issue of Special Places, which I really, really enjoy. One of the more recent articles I wrote for Special Places was about this year's State of the Coast report. This was our second issue, and it focused on Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and the Elizabeth Islands. And it was really interesting to see the different coastal challenges each region faced, but also the similarities, and to learn about what collaboration is already happening and what more can be done to protect these amazing places from the turbulence of climate change. The release of this year's State of the Coast report was really a memorable occasion. We were able to celebrate that at Long Point. But another fun part is sometimes when things don't go the way you plan them. And while we were setting up for the State of the Coast report release this year, it was sort of a series of challenging events that morning, which culminated in the rain starting and our golf cart breaking down. So there's a photo of me and our PR director where at that point all we could do was laugh and push the golf cart. And after that point everything went great. It was sort of like everything had to go wrong first for everything to go right, and that picture will always live in my memory as one of my favorite moments. My reaction when I learned I was Employee of the Year, I was blown away. I was really shocked and so grateful. I think there were a few tears involved, but really I'm just completely grateful for this honor. The Trustees is an organization I've really long admired. I very much enjoy what I do, and I work with a lot of really incredible, passionate people. I'd like to say to my colleagues and to governance and to volunteers and to whoever is watching the video, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be a part of this organization and to work alongside so many of you.
Congratulations, Christine. Thank you for your work. The importance of volunteers to our organization's success cannot be overstated. Volunteers across the state join with staff to help us meet our mission and to bring it alive for the public every day. We thank all of our volunteers for your continued and dedicated service. We could not do this work without you. Within the ranks of our volunteers exists a special, incredibly dedicated subset, the garden coordinators for each of our 56 Boston community gardens. These individuals are not only volunteers, but they also coordinate many other volunteers to ensure that these vital, verdant oases continue to thrive. This year, we are honoring one who has made a tremendous impact. Renee Burgess is the garden coordinator for the Greenwood Community Garden in Dorchester. Greenwood has been in use for more than 40 years and needed some love and special care after its longtime coordinator developed some health issues. As a resident of the neighborhood, Renee saw her local garden in need of help and 2 years ago began to work. She rallied the community and has helped to turn this small neighborhood green space around. Renee's efforts have drawn considerable neighborhood interest. As Greenwood is small with just 12 plots, there are already 5 more potential gardeners on the waiting list, and that's just by her second year. She has an abundance of energy and ideas and a vision for how the garden can grow to be an even more important part of the community. For her dedication to improving her neighborhood by bringing gardeners together and making Greenwood Community Garden a vital place once more, the Trustees is pleased to name Renee Burgess as its 2021 Volunteer of the Year.
What I hear the gardeners say a lot is that this is a sanctuary for them. The city noises are still around, but it's a peaceful place to be. My name is Renee Burgess, and I'm the coordinator for the Greenwood Street Garden. My responsibilities are to make sure that people are doing their due diligence in weeding and all the difficult tasks that are part of the garden. I noticed walking around in my neighborhood that we actually had a community garden that was owned by the trustees, but it was in a bit of a disarray. Every day I walked by, I said to myself, what can I do to make this better? So I took the courses. After the course, I said, well, can I be the manager of this garden? They said, absolutely.
I'm Michelle DeLima. I'm the engagement manager for the Trustees Network of Community Gardens in Boston. We have 56 gardens around the city, and I run programming and engagement. So a couple of years ago, Renee approached me while she was taking our Master Urban Gardener class and said, you know, this garden is in my neighborhood and it's looking pretty neglected and I want to get involved and help. And we were very happy to hear that because she's such a warm, inviting person. She makes everybody feel welcome. She's really good at building relationships and friendships.
What I'd like to see in the future is more collaboration with the Greenwood School, getting the children involved and planting and harvesting, just teaching them about the natural environment. My favorite part of being in the garden is our abundance basket. When we have an abundance of crop, maybe from a tomato plant or a pepper plant, and it's just too much for one person to have, we just go ahead and put them outside in the basket, and anybody that walks by in the community can go ahead and pick it up.
Often you come by and it's full of cucumbers and squash and tomatoes. Such a simple thing, but it's kind of a great way of having the garden be more open and accessible to people in the neighborhood, whether or not they garden. We nominated Renee for this award because she's done so much in the last couple of years to bring this garden back to a thriving, bustling place with a lot of gardeners and a lot of community engagement.
The trustees, they have a lot of volunteers, so to be named Volunteer of the Year was not only surprising, but it was honoring and humbling. I will continue to try to just do my best to make this a flourishing environment for everybody in our community.
Congratulations, Renee. Your service is vitally important and much appreciated. At the Trustees, we protect the large and small places across the Commonwealth. A couple of years ago, we were given the opportunity to consider the future of an 8.5-acre green space in the residential Cape Cod village of Osterville. This opportunity was perfectly suited to our work. A treasured community garden with beautiful bones and a dedicated volunteer force, Armstrong Kelly Park is a jewel. It has been lovingly cared for by the Cape Cod Horticultural Society, an organization which has existed since the 1930s and holds just this one property. Armstrong Kelly has been cultivated, grown, and nurtured for decades. Before I introduce our 2021 Conservationist of the Year, let me first welcome you all to Armstrong Kelly Park.
So today we're at Armstrong Kelly Park on Main Street in Osterville. We're in a little jewel of 8.5 acres of land that's right in the heart of this lovely little village.
As you come through town, you see our wonderful shops, our restaurants, and then out of the blue is this oasis.
This is the oldest private park on Cape Cod. It was established in 1930.
Armstrong Kelly Park is an outgrowth of Cape Cod Horticultural Society that started in '28. As any gardener knows the expression, you know, it has good bones. We have garden rooms. We have a fish pond, which has been there since 2003. Our volunteers dug it. When you come to the park for the first time, you first see our specimen collection, and we're very proud of that. For us to offer prairies, meadows, butterfly gardens, bees, plants that are, planted for your health.
And then the holly collection and the rhododendron collection and things that are really indigenous to Cape Cod are also part of the core of what this place is all about. And so that combination of curiosity and great horticulture and public enjoyment is what I'm really hoping that everybody will get out of the park when they come to see us here and experience some great programming or a wonderful picnic on a nice family day.
I think families use the park mostly, and that's what it's all about.
Kids love the park. We almost have to reintroduce kids to nature in a way. Their world has become more focused inside, and yet imagination soars in the outside.
As the trustees have come to know Armstrong Kelly Park, it's clear that the labor of love that has gone into this place for decades is incredibly impressive.
The volunteers, they're the merry band of tireless warriors. They keep this place in an absolutely beautiful state, but I think they would tell you it is not an easy task.
We just could not continue with the volunteers we have. We needed some help.
None of us wanted to see this park go away. There's a bench that I commissioned. It says, remember, reflect, and renew. It's what we're doing now. hundreds of volunteers who have got it to be where it is, but we needed to reflect. And upon reflection, we realized we really needed to renew it. And the trustees are bringing that home. So I'm hopeful that people today will have confidence that their grandchildren will also be here doing the same thing.
Welcome to Armstrong Kelly Park.
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 We want you to enjoy it each and every day.
Come down for a visit.
For their ongoing devotion to open space and this beautiful place, the Cape Cod Horticultural Society are this year's Charles Elliott Conservationist of the Year recipients. We are pleased to honor this group of conservationists and gardeners. And now, representing the Cape Cod Horticultural Society, I'd like to introduce Dee Dow Chase.
On behalf of the generations of volunteers, members, and donors, I am honored to accept the Charles Elliott Award as the Conservationist of the Year. For 91 years, we have toiled to create a space of joy and peace for our visitors on land donated primarily by Charles Armstrong in honor of his two daughters. The park was created out of forest with sacrifice, Yankee ingenuity, and devotion to the community. The land remained sandy paths until the 60s, when it started to evolve into a park. In the early 90s, three things changed. The Memorial Board campaign funded our operational costs with lasting effects with the community. The 1992 master plan was implemented to make the park as you see it. Volunteers innovated. They were planting bulbs with elementary school kids and adding adult education and enrichment programs. But times change. Volunteers retired and interest in the boards declined. Our small cash reserve shrank rapidly. New volunteers were few and far between. But we pushed on and we tightened our belts. Senior citizens rock. And believe me, they dig in harder when the times get tough. After becoming president, we formed a new board of directors in 2019, taking on the difficult choice: keep the park afloat on our own or look for a partner. Our goals were to promote the land from being commercially developed, achieve financial stability, and partner with a compatible organization. We overwhelmingly voted to look for a partner. Enter the trustees. Timing was ideal, and just when we needed vision, resources, and experience. We sincerely thank and miss Barbara Erickson for her leadership in bringing Armstrong Kelly Park into the fold. Thanks to Jocelyn Forbush, the executive committee, Ann Smith-White, Jenna Gomes, and in the face of the pandemic, you persevered. You listened. You have treated us with utmost respect and cooperation. Together, we developed a conceptual plan and recently endorsed phase 1 of the master plan. In closing, as John Muir said, of all the paths in life you walk, make a few of them dirt. Our small band of heroes chose the right path. It is our legacy, and we are gratified our children, grandchildren, and their grandchildren will enjoy the park for years to come. The park was known as the secret of Osterville. With this merger, it's a secret no more. Armstrong Kelly Park is the oldest, largest, privately held park on Cape Cod. And I'm pleased to say it will continue to be so under the trustees' care. Thank you, and thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Congratulations to our honorees. Your commitment and passion for the trustees allows us not just to continue our legacy in conservation stewardship and engagement, but also to thrive and grow as a successful organization. This is our first annual meeting since the passing of Barbara Erickson. Last year, she was able to send you all a video message. We later learned that she was in her final days and yet still wanted to be with all of you one last time. She is here with us in spirit tonight. I want to take a moment to remember Barbara's vision, courage, audacious spirit, and her love of our mission. Many of you have shared memories and thoughts since her passing, and I thank you all for your support of the organization during this challenging time. I am pleased to announce that the Barbara Erickson Land Conservation Fund has now received 156 gifts totaling $25.5 million. As an endowment, this fund will exist in perpetuity and will always support our work to protect special places in Barbara's name. She would be so proud of what the organization has accomplished during these challenging times. Most of all, Barbara was always looking towards the future. She was always building the next big project or new initiative, understanding that what we build today will grow into tomorrow. And tonight I invite you all to look to the future with me. I am very pleased to say that our search for the trustees' next CEO is nearing its conclusion. This has been a very thorough, robust process that began early in the year. Our search committee consists of 7 members of the board with Nisi Panetta as its chair. We have benefited greatly from input from many of you, plus countless other stakeholders. We began by engaging a leading global search firm, Russell Reynolds. With their help, we developed a detailed outline of the position's responsibilities and a very aspirational description of the necessary qualifications for a candidate. I am happy to say that we have had excellent interest from a wide range of exceptionally impressive leaders from major organizations, so the qualifications we sought were not overly aspirational. We are now in the midst of interviewing a select group of finalists, and we hope to be making this important announcement to you all very soon. In the meantime, on behalf of the board and the search committee, I want to express our immense appreciation to all of the staff for their extraordinary work through this period. We are incredibly fortunate to have had such dedicated and talented employees under the excellent leadership of our acting president and CEO, Jocelyn Forbush, and her executive team. There is no doubt that the organization's continued strong performance has strengthened the caliber and interest of candidates for the CEO post. Thank you. There is much to celebrate as we've made great strides towards the goals with our strategic plan, which we named Momentum and launched in 2018. As we enter the last year of the plan, I would like to share with you some of our important work. Unfortunately, there could never be sufficient time to adequately tell you all about everything that's been accomplished, but I'll provide a few key highlights. Our first initiative of the strategic plan is to protect the places people love, and here we continue to make great progress. For example, at 2 of our newest properties, Mary Cummings Park in Burlington and Jewel Hill in Ashby, we held reopening ceremonies this year and unveiled some beautiful enhancements, which are already encouraging more visitation and engagement. There have been other capital projects on our properties, all part of our ongoing stewardship efforts as we further our work to a 70% fulfillment of baseline standards. I am especially pleased with our 2 new property additions this year. First was the acquisition and protection of the 300-acre Beckett Quarry in the Berkshires, a beautiful forest preserve and historic quarry, and we raised a healthy $270,000 endowment from the community to support its care and maintenance. Second was the addition of Armstrong Kelly Park, the 8.5-acre garden and woodland oasis in Osterville you just learned about moments ago. Again, thank you to Dee and the Cape Cod Horticultural Society. We will soon undertake an important revitalization of this beautiful park. And there have been other promising developments, which we hope before too long will lead to 2 additional parks, very important properties to the trustees. Last year, we were thrilled to receive site designation from Massport to build a waterfront park at Pierce Park 3 in East Boston. This would be our first park under our One Waterfront initiative and a major step forward in improving the accessibility and resilience of Boston Harbor. And in the very near future, we hope to share news of the acquisition of Moraine Farm in Beverly. And speaking of Moraine Farm, a property we have sought to protect for more than 20 years, I would like to invite Cindy Brockway, Program Director for the Cultural Resources, to join me. Cindy, welcome. Tell us why Moraine Farm is so important.
Thank you so much, Peter. I'm so happy to join everybody tonight at this annual meeting and to celebrate this great opportunity that we have with Moraine Farm. Back in 1879, John Phillips bought up a series of dilapidated farms to create what he wanted for his country seat called Moraine Farm. In 1880, he hired Frederick Law Olmsted, and he asked him to apply his knowledge for park design on this private residential landscape. There were 3 parts to his vision: field, forest, and estate lawn. Olmsted created a series of curated views that opened and closed into the woodlands along each carriage road. The house isn't even revealed until the very end, when it was meant to be glimpsed behind a veil of shrubbery that separated the estate lawn and the garden from the country meadows. Thanks to the continued preservation efforts of its second owners, the Batchelder family, this landscape has been recognized as one of the most Olmstedian landscapes that exists today. The acquisition of this 66-acre parcel that was recently owned by Project Adventure is at the core of the estate, and it represents our opportunity to recombine and celebrate this landscape, with the trustees becoming the primary organization responsible for its stewardship. We have the technical expertise in preserving our cultural landscapes and in igniting the property experiences for diverse audiences. We can create a sustainable property business plan that balances property revenue with the protection of its cultural resources. We feel that the trustees is really the best organization to appropriately manage this remarkable landscape. Charles Eliot called our organization a museum of landscapes, and we have many remarkable properties thanks to this vision. Our properties create a platform for uniting the words of our founders into action. We protect some of the most iconic, scenic, historic, and ecologically sensitive places in the Commonwealth. We welcome our members to actively engage with each other at these properties and with us, or to simply rest, relax, and enjoy their beauty. Moraine Farm is truly a jewel among these iconic landscapes, and we invite you all to join us in applying our expertise to Moraine Farm, and as Olmsted suggested in 1892, having the determination to perfect the legacy of its original owner. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Cindy. We look forward to seeing Moraine Farm become whole again under the trustees. Our second goal under the strategic plan is to respond to a changing coast. Here, our work has been providing important leadership in addressing climate change and coastal vulnerability. The trustees has launched an innovative salt marsh restoration project to naturally heal 300 acres of ditched marsh at Old Town Hill in Newbury, along with other parcels of the Great Marsh in Essex and Ipswich. And we are receiving more than $1 million in grants to support this work. The Salt Marsh Project is taking place alongside additional climate adaptation initiatives, such as our work with the town of Ipswich to bolster the resilience of Argilla Road. And the Trustees is also producing important research on sea level rise and coastal vulnerability. Last year, we published our first State of the Coast report examining 13 North Shore communities. This year, our second State of the Coast report focused on Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. Finally, we continue to innovate and explore new ways to address the challenges facing our coastal properties. These have included the design of new interpretive components at Crane Beach related to ecology, climate impacts, and coastal care, and interactive media platforms, such as a 360-degree drone video to educate constituents about the impacts of climate change on our coastal properties. In the coming year, we will continue this important work. Tom O'Shea, Managing Director of Resources and Planning, has joined me. Tom, can you tell us what projects will be completed in the next year and what are the plans beyond that?
Sure, Peter, it's my pleasure, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to talk about the coast. There's so much happening, as you've heard, and so much more to do. It's a very urgent matter. As you all know, coastal resilience is critical for our organization and for many of us that are dealing with these issues across the coast. I'm happy to announce that in a few weeks, the trustees, in partnership with the town of Edgartown and Dukes County, will restore several hundred feet of coastal dunes on Norton Point as part of our beach resiliency trials on the islands. And then moving over to Nantucket, we will be co-hosting stakeholder workshops that are in partnership with the Nantucket Conservation Foundation. These will be featuring design concepts to bolster resilience of the Cosqueda Wildlife Refuge. And we're also launching a 3-year coastal research internship with Boston University that will help to do and further a coastal wave sediment study looking at how climate will impact not only this important Barrier Beach system, but also Nantucket Harbor. Moving to the North Shore, we are building on our Great Marsh restoration work in partnership with Restore America's Estuaries, a national organization, and we're working with them to pursue a feasibility assessment for developing the nation's first blue carbon project for tidal wetlands across 2,000 acres of our trustees' properties within the Great Marsh. And at Crane Beach, we are excited to begin construction next year of a new coastal education center, a great opportunity for us to be engaging over 350,000 people per year. And lastly, we will be turning our focus to the South Coast and Buzzards Bay for the next State of the Coast report. We are excited again to really present all this progress, and back to you, Peter.
Thank you, Tom. Great work. Our third goal under the strategic plan is to elevate our cultural and agricultural properties. In this area, our accomplishments of the past year were especially gratifying. Following multi-year efforts of transformational work, including design, permitting, construction, and community outreach, we reopened Stevens Coolidge House and Gardens in North Andover and Long Hill in Beverly. As you can see with the video of Long Hill, these sites have been beautifully rejuvenated thanks to some very significant investments. The improvements to these properties and the overall visitor experience are amazing. There have been other improvements and to our farms as well. The trustees purchased and saved an historic 19th century barn in Southborough, dismantling it and then reconstructing it piece by piece at Chestnut Hill Farm, where it will have a new life as an engagement space for the community and the campers coming to Chestnut Hill Farm next year. While Fruitlands and De Cordova are still relatively new to the trustees, they are now an integral and essential part of our organization's cultural engagement. This past year, both museums had important exhibitions. De Cordova is displaying works by Jeffrey Gibson that are giving us new perspectives on identity. Meanwhile, Fruitlands is offering a reinterpretation of the Native American Gallery. We are looking forward to next year's Art in the Landscape project at Holmesfield in Plymouth by artist Rose B. Simpson, an Indigenous artist. Jessica May is our Managing Director of Art and Exhibitions and Artistic Director at DeCordova. Welcome, Jessica. Can you give us a look at what you're thinking about in the future with art and culture?
Yes, thank you, Peter. I'm speaking to you from the DeCordova Sculpture Park and Museum in Lincoln. And next to me is Rose B. Simpson's evocative sculpture, Counterculture, a preparatory work for her 2022 Art in the Landscape Commission. This small, powerful figure is the inspiration for a series of tall sculptures that will grace Holmes Reservation in Plymouth next May. Rose calls these figures spirits and reminds us that each is a little bit like a universal mother figure watching over us here on Earth. We're proud to be working on Art in the Landscape 2022, but we're also getting ready for the New England Triennial, opening in April for the first time at both the DeCordova and Fruitlands Museum. Our curators have approached their work with a sense of great adventure, and I'm eager to see the results of their many, many studio visits. One final 2022 highlight I want to mention is an exhibition of the art of George Rickey at Namkeg. I think the rigorous geometry of Rickey's sculpture and their cool metal finishes will be deeply moving and help us all reconnect to the dynamism of that site's glorious viewshed. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Jessica. That's amazing. With our fourth goal, to invite the next generation outdoors, we have made very impressive progress by expanding and creating new programming. Our Hike Trustees program has continued to grow and has become extremely popular with thousands of participants. We have also launched a new mountain biking pilot this year. Working through organizations like the Boys and Girls Clubs in several cities, Big City Mountaineers and City in the Woods, we are expanding our reach to new audiences to improve access to outdoor recreational opportunities. We have also created a roving recreational unit to offer programs at our natural sites, which are typically not programmed. The Trustees summer camps continue to expand at Powysset Farm and Rocky Woods, and now we're pleased to announce the addition of a camp at Chestnut Hill Farm. We want to attract millennials and Gen Z audiences to our places as well, and this has led to the launch of my favorite new program, Traveling Beer Gardens. In summary, we continue to expand the way we approach outdoor experiences and recreational opportunities at all our natural sites. Joining me to talk about this new area of work is Jen Klein, our first Director of Outdoor Experience. Jen, tell us about some of the exciting initiatives you have planned for the coming year.
Great. Thank you, Peter, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I'm very excited and proud of all that the trustees have accomplished over the last several years to get more people outdoors and engaged with nature. Looking ahead, we'll be launching some new projects and expanding some key initiatives designed to get even more people outdoors and connected to nature. So in the next year, I'm particularly excited about taking what we started this year with our roving outdoor adventure programs and expanding those to more regions and more properties across the state, and to include experiences such as paddling, hiking, and mountain biking experiences. In January 2022, we'll kick off a new year of our Hike Trustees Challenge, and that'll offer an opportunity for our supporters and members to hit the trails and visit as many properties as they can in a calendar year. We're going to continue our work on deepening our partnerships and relationships with organizations to help us reach new and under-resourced communities, or those that may have less access to high quality outdoor education and recreation experiences. And then of course, this year we're launching our new education framework, which we established to offer high quality outdoor and environmental education across the state, but we'll be starting in 2022 with the communities on the North Shore and the South Shore. And then looking ahead to next summer, we'll be operating a new summer camp at Chestnut Hill Farm, which will bring us to a total of 9 camps across the state. And finally, I'm very excited to share that in the next year, we'll be breaking ground on some new nature and adventure play spaces across the state, including our first accessible nature play trail at Copacabana Woods in Fall River. More to come, but for now, I'll turn it back to you, Peter.
That sounds exciting, Jen. Thank you so much for joining us. The final initiative of our strategic plan is to build the trustees of the future, and we've made extraordinary progress towards this goal. We are really heartened by the incredible growth of the trustees in membership, visitation, engagement, volunteerism, and philanthropy. We are building on the momentum that inspired our strategic plan, and this reflects a lot of hard work together and some creative entrepreneurial thinking. Recent examples of this include creating our first online e-commerce retail offering, the transformation of our retail shops on properties, and the opening of 2 new garden stores. Another example is the way that we will track and monitor visitation for more accurate reporting. We are always looking for opportunities to enhance visitor experiences at our properties, which led us to launch camping at Rocky Woods with new sites and to expand our camping offers at Tully Lake and Dunes Edge. Of course, as conservationists, we understand that a healthy ecosystem requires diversity. And that is true not just for our properties, it is true for our organization. We authored a diversity, belonging, inclusion, and equity strategy to create a more welcoming trustees spaces across the organization and our properties. Janelle Woods McNish is our Managing Director, Community Impact. Janelle, you have authored the DBIE plan and have begun to see some of its initiatives start. What are you excited about for the coming year?
Thank you, Peter. As you noted, our Diversity, Belonging, Inclusion, and Equity Roadmap provides an overarching vision for creating inclusive spaces of belonging across our organization and our properties. In this inaugural year of the roadmap, we have collectively made some great strides to bring this vision to life in many ways that I am immensely proud of. From expanding programming that celebrates diversity and culture, to featuring more diverse artists in our exhibitions, to deepening our commitment to providing more access for mobility impaired people, to establishing partnerships with local community organizations, we are strengthening our ability to welcome diverse audiences to our properties. At the organizational level, we've invested in staff trainings and learning sessions. We have also started to better understand the current diversity of our staff, our governance, and our visitors as we work to improve the representation of diverse voices across our organization. I am truly inspired by the foundational work we have built. And as we look ahead in the coming year, I'm excited to build upon this momentum, this intentional focus, and the learnings we have along this incredible journey. Thank you.
Such incredibly important work. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you to all my special guests. I hope you have enjoyed hearing from them. It is often now said that the pandemic has heightened our awareness of the things that matter most and accelerated important trends. Our appreciation for nature and the outdoors is certainly at the very top of these things. So too is the importance of community and our connections to each other. The trustees is remarkably well positioned to support both of these needs for communities in Massachusetts. While we have accomplished a great deal, we still have ambitions, aspirations, and goals to achieve, and we do not rest. All of you are part of the plan, the strategy, and the goals. We need your help in achieving everything we do. Thank you for being a part of the chat. I look forward to reporting next year on the further progress and the completion of momentum. I would now like to welcome Jocelyn Forbush, Acting CEO and President, for the President's remarks. Jocelyn.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Peter. I am very excited to be with you all this evening, although virtually, to celebrate our 130th annual meeting. Before I begin my remarks, I want to honor our tradition of remembering those dear to us who we have lost in the past year. Let us take a moment to celebrate these longtime friends, including our President and CEO, Barbara Erickson. Thanks to these incredible people, we have a thriving organization today. They each embody a different type of contribution and service, from those who were part of the story of our reservations to those who gave their time and energy as a volunteer. Each left a legacy that continues to inspire us. Our longtime friend, John Bradley, gave the trustees his family's property, the Eleanor Cabot Bradley Estate, where the gardens and trails serve to delight visitors daily. Stephen Root, a life trustee, gave us a significant addition to one of our oldest reservations, Monument Mountain. Holbrook Davis, a corporate trustee since 1992, and Jack Gardner, a corporate trustee since 1977, collectively gave more than 7 decades of service to the organization. Nancy Putnam became a life trustee in 2004, and prior to her passing, named the Horticultural Learning Center at Long Hill in honor of her husband, George. Hooker Talcott Jr. first became involved with the trustees in 1982, and for decades, he helped to recruit many important governance members to the organization. And finally, we lost Barbara Erickson this past January. She served for almost 9 years as the trustees' leader, and her legacy lives on through all of us and the successes that Peter shared in his report. She was an inspirational force who led us through a tremendous period of growth and transformation. We miss each of these friends, but they remind us of the power of service and dedication to meaningful endeavors. So tonight's annual meeting marks a second year of the COVID pandemic and another year of a virtual presentation. Usually, we would fill a space with our conversation and laughter. I would greet old friends and meet new ones. Having been a part of this annual gathering for many years, I always enjoy the homecoming-like experience of this hallowed tradition. Tonight's meeting, though, like so much in life today, is different. And so this evening, I'd like to talk about some of the ways in which the world has changed and how those shifts have caused the trustees to rethink our work and our focus. I would also like to imagine with you the change that is yet to come, that which we will author to make our work even stronger. During our lifetimes, we have all witnessed life-altering events. There have been public health crises, major political shifts, economic depressions and booms, dramatic and tragic weather and climate impacts, and there has unfortunately been a consistent history of racial unrest and social inequity. In the last several years, we have all experienced a sustained state of change, and recently, with no break, one thing after another. Change, in fact, has become more familiar to us than stability. And so what does that mean for the trustees? We have responded to the new dynamics of the world with a mix of caution and courage. We've adapted, pivoted, flexed, and twisted ourselves into this strange new world. And then we waited. We initially anticipated a return to normal. But I think it's time we accept that things aren't going back to that normal. Throughout our 130-year history, the trustees has faced change many times, and we have proactively created new ways of working in order to adapt and grow with the opportunities of the moment. Our very founding was a response to a major societal and economic shift, when Charles Eliot identified the need to seize the special places that would soon be lost. Eliot declared in his now famous line, and I quote, "As Boston's lovers of art united to found the Art Museum, so her lovers of nature should now rally to preserve for themselves and all the people as many as possible of these scenes of natural beauty which by great good fortune still exist near their doors. We are now the holders of that great good fortune because of Eliot and others' acts during a time of crisis. So tonight, I want to ask of ourselves and all of you, how will our response to this moment of crisis generate a great good fortune that we will leave to future generations? What will our legacy be, and how will we rally while these fortunes still exist? There are three important changes that I'd like to explore with you all this evening in areas that have accelerated or shifted in our work in the last 24 months. These three issues include the importance of the outdoors and nature in our lives, the urgent mandate for us to create material social change and greater equity in our culture, and finally, the existential crisis of our changing climate, which has evolved to a critical point, igniting a new generation to action and presenting us with perhaps the most important issue our organization has confronted across its history. Early on in the pandemic, we recognized that the trustees could be a remedy to the loss that so many were feeling. We opened up our properties and welcomed visitors. We kept our staff safe while providing the public with a place to break the isolation and gather to see friends and family. Many thousands flocked to the outdoors and to nature, many for the first time, finding not only safety, but release. Nature became an antidote. The most striking response we saw was in membership and visitation. At every property across the state, more and more people found us and continue to find us today to experience the beauty, the fun, the solace, the community, and the adventure of our places. Our visitors seek meaning and sustenance in connection with nature, with history, with community, and with each other. Our drive to find ways to be together has never been greater. And this year, with vaccines and the removal of gathering restrictions, we have been grateful that we can connect with so many through our public programs. 160,000 participants so far this year, and we're expecting to double that number by year's end. At our properties, we'll continue to invite and engage through our pizza picnics, camping, summer camps, extended property hours, while our trails, waterfronts, and woodlands continue to be loved by thousands of hikers, walkers, and their dogs. In all this, we owe much to our digital landscape, and while our devices have captured far too much of our attention in many respects, they have also been a critical point of access for many more people, helping our visitors to experience our reservations in person in more engaging and seamless ways. Our digital portals are just one way that we have connected with thousands more members and visitors than ever in these past 2 years. And yet, there is still so much more to do. There are many who have not found themselves outdoors or found ways to get active. A Pew Research Center study showed that only 14% of Americans described the pandemic as a time for improved health, eating, or outdoor routines. So many more of us still need to find outdoor places. In particular, I want to talk about the urgency that we are facing with regard to social equity and racism in America, but also right here at home in Massachusetts. At most recent count, 242 cities, towns, and counties have declared racism as a public health crisis. This includes LA, Chicago, San Antonio, and most recently, New York City. Even in Boston, where we just elected the first woman of color as mayor, a recent WBUR poll found that 8 out of 10 Bostonians felt racism was a significant problem. So you might ask, what does the trustees have to do with such issues? Our role in providing opportunities for health and wellness, access to healthy organic food, open space and nature for everyone has only become more urgent during the pandemic. We all saw the disparate impact of the pandemic on communities of color, and this was compounded by inequitable access to restorative, healing, outdoor spaces. We see this clearly, and we know we must address this imbalance. We now know that open space improves physical and mental health, that it makes our streets more livable by tempering climate extremes, and it serves as a gathering place where social connections and communities are built, bringing vibrancy to our lives. At our most basic level, the trustees strive to create welcoming and belonging at our special places, to share our landscape's benefits with all. But we face the challenge, along with other sectors, of removing the barriers to access and participation. So where does this lead us? Among our early efforts to reach out and throw open our doors even wider to the public include our work with several indigenous tribes in Massachusetts to remove language on our properties and in our museums that perpetuate negative images of their people, and to invite our tribal partners to author their own story and bring their own stories to enrich these special places. As the holder of histories and of cultural memory, we have amplified our commitment to researching and sharing the histories of African American and Indigenous people who are part of the historic fabric of our properties, giving them voice and attribution for tremendous, unseen contributions to our landscapes and our lives. At our two museums, the DeCordova Sculpture Park and Museum and Fruitlands Museum, we continue to present expressions by artists of color, amplifying their stories, inviting the public to engage in reflection and dialogue inspired by their perspective and creativity. In our communities, we are listening, as in Boston, where our waterfront initiative has engaged with neighborhoods across the city to host bilingual town halls that have brought over 1,000 voices to our waterfront park design process in East Boston. We've heard aspirations for new waterfront open space that reflect across race and class, power and privilege, all committed to solving the challenges of equity, resilience, and access in a new network of waterfront parks. This is the creative and inclusive community dialogue that we need to continue to advance in Boston and across the state. And finally, we will continue to grow our partnerships with organizations that serve those most often underserved through outdoor recreation programming. Through partnerships, including with Big City Mountaineering, we are building outdoor programs for youth from our urban landscapes. We know that getting outside in the city is critically important, but we also know that it is not enough. In the coming years, this work will only become more important. And as our visitation, governance, staff, and membership begin to change and diversify, we will have new questions to answer. Our roadmap for this journey calls on us to focus on public engagement and partnerships, organizational diversity, and our vendor relationships. Each of these areas represent a tremendous amount of ambition and change ahead, and I look forward to sharing more about the outcomes in the days to come. And finally, this evening, I want to turn our focus to the topic of climate change. As an organization committed to protecting the special places of Massachusetts for the public forever, we are constant and diligent witnesses of the natural world. As stewards, we monitor the endangerment and vitality of hundreds of species. We watch the oceans invade the shoreline more and more each year. We preserve and steward history against the wear and tear of the elements over decades. The natural world teaches us all to accept change as a way of life. But recently, our pace of change has gone out of whack, and our sense of normalcy has been thrown off kilter. Our spring blooms in our gardens come early now, and our snow comes late, if at all. Our treeless city streets are unbearably hot in the summers. Our storms come more frequently, scouring our beaches, our driveways, our riverbeds, and our once intermittent nuisance flooding along our coast is now pernicious, regular, and rising. The impacts of our changing climate can be seen all across our communities in Massachusetts and around the world, and they are accelerating and intensifying. We have an increasingly good view of the consequences of this trend, and we know that unless we as a global community alter course, we will not have the future that we have all envisioned. This issue extends well beyond Massachusetts in scope, and some have challenged us on the extent of our potential impact as a statewide organization. So several years ago, we started where we knew we could make a difference, with a focus on our coast, one of our most spectacular landscapes and one of the front lines of accelerating change. It is here that, as you've heard, we are already learning and innovating, bringing resilience to vulnerable beaches and coastal habitats, even in the face of increasingly dramatic forces of nature. As you heard in Peter's remarks, we have made considerable headway in healing one of the nation's most important natural systems, the Great Marsh on the North Shore. And we've also been working with towns such as Ipswich, Newbury, Nantucket, and Edgartown to model and implement new coastal resilience techniques. And in Boston, our efforts to build a series of signature waterfront parks will provide resilient design, green infrastructure, and public access to our extremely vulnerable capital city. We've taken a regional perspective of climate impacts with the 2 editions of our State of the Coast report, a document meant to educate, inspire, and drive coordinated action across our cities and towns in the Commonwealth. Our progress on our coast has been remarkable, and our work has just begun. But as our focus on the coast continues, we need to expand our impact and join our partners to act swiftly to address this crisis on a larger scale. We know we are not alone in this work, and with a unique role to play, we are prepared to lead. At the core of who we are is a preciously important leadership opportunity for this moment. Our very mission of conservation provides a natural climate solution, protecting landscapes, providing exceptional management of the places we own and love is second nature to us. But this moment calls for us to add a new goal to that work, caring for our landscape's carbon through the protection of forests, farms, and coastal landscapes all across our state. On our own, this work represents a very important contribution to mitigating the loss of carbon. When advanced in partnership with public and private partners, the opportunity scales to critical impact. In this historic moment, there is a great deal of energy and evolution as our nation grapples with the impacts of COVID and the economic opportunities to build important green infrastructure and climate solutions across the nation. Our role as a trusted voice, as an advocate, must meet this moment as we engage in the implementation of what could become the largest public investment in climate adaptation in our history. When Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act last spring, we immediately began working with peers in the public policy realm to steer funds for these priorities. We currently await passage of 2 multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure packages pending in Congress, including a $500 billion to address climate change for projects such as coastal wetland restoration and a new civilian climate corps. These public investments complement the trustees' achievements in passing multi-billion-dollar state environmental bonds and our more recent efforts to prioritize natural climate solutions in Massachusetts' new next-generation climate law. Alongside our partners, we have engaged proactively at the federal, state, and local level, helping to author legislation, shape funding opportunities, and support the brave leadership that is required at all levels to set us on a new course for our future. Our voice in the policy arena is becoming even more impactful. And when paired with our outreach To our growing family of members and visitors to our properties, we have the opportunity to build convictions and advance shared action, to inspire the next generation, and to connect more people to our mission. As an organization built over 130 years ago to support and manage change, we are responding to the call of this moment. With strong commitment to the final year of our ambitious strategic plan, Momentum, still to come, we will take advantage of the opportunities in front of us within the context of these key issues I've illuminated. We are, most of all, reframing the conversation, inviting more people to the table, and celebrating the diversity in our own communities. We began tonight talking about what we'd lost. One of the things that we have collectively lost is a sense of connection, of belonging. We all feel a bit out of place. To belong somewhere, though, with a family or a team is to be secure. And in that security, we find our own ability to thrive. What creates our sense of belonging? We know that one of our chief duties as a steward of special places is to provide a place to belong, to welcome everyone, to build an organization with wide open doors, and that each visitor can see themselves in our work and as part of our future. That they pick up the mantle from those names I mentioned at the beginning: Barbara, Hooker, Nancy, John, Jack, Stephen, and Holbrook, names of predecessors they will not recognize nor ever know, but who laid the path that is so well tread. We are on our journey to this new, more welcoming place, but in case you have any doubt, let me remind you that you, each of you, belong here.
You belong here. You belong here. You belong.
You belong.
You belong here.
Thank you. And now I'd like to turn it back to Peter, who will close the meeting.
Thank you for those informative and reflective remarks, Jocelyn. And before we adjourn, I just want to encourage all of you to please join us at one of our governance open houses on Saturday, November 6th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at DeCordova, Long Hill, or Chestnut Hill Farm. The weather forecast is for a beautiful fall day, and I'd really look forward to being with all of you. I would now like to call for a motion to close the annual meeting. Thank you for joining us for this evening for the 130th consecutive annual meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Good night.